Hello everybody, my name is Sophie and welcome back to Bookmas! How excited are we for today's video? Super! So, since this is a little bit of a twist, guys, I know, I promised a book shopping video. I promised it from day one. I should have pre-filmed it. I've learned a lot through this Bookmas and the number one thing I learned was I should have pre-filmed more. But since this is my first time doing it, I didn't really know. And so we're doing a little bit of a different version today. We're just going to talk about book shopping, which maybe isn't as exciting, but I'm going to try to make it a little bit interesting for you guys. This is usually something I would discuss in my podcast, in a Book Hater podcast maybe. Well, definitely the Book Hater podcast, but maybe in a podcast episode and not just as a normal video. Because I feel like during Bookmas, these sit-down videos have been like small versions of the podcast because I discuss different topics. So I apologize that you didn't get that many videos of me like actively going out and doing things. I was just not prepared enough, I'm going to be honest. Like I thought that this was going to be easy peasy, but then all of the stuff that I had to do with unions and so on, I just didn't have the time. But for next year, subscribe now so you're here next year, I'm definitely gonna be a little bit more prepared, definitely. That being said, this was supposed to be a book shopping vlog. Also, because not that many people watched my day in my life video, I mentioned in there that I also promised 24-hour reading vlog of dark romance books. I also can't do that. I'm sorry. I don't have the time, guys. I don't have the time to commit to reading for 24 hours at the moment. I mentioned before, Bookmas is in a very unfortunate time for me. So I, as a compromise, promise to you it's gonna be the Christmas special. I'm still gonna do it. It's just gonna be a few days later than now, like in the middle of the month instead of, or the end of the month instead of the beginning of the month. But it's still gonna happen and I'm gonna upload it on Christmas Eve as my Christmas present to you guys. Because I'm gonna be suffering. So what are we going to do today? We're going to talk about book shopping in Germany. I think this is a topic, again, that I would have discussed in a podcast, but also a topic where a lot of you can chime in. Because I know that the majority of my viewers are actually from English-speaking countries, meaning America, Australia, shout out, and also from Canada and the UK. But I also know that there's a lot of German people watching me, and there's also just people from all over the world watching, of course, but you're not the majority, so I can't see it in the statistics. But it doesn't matter, love you. And I'm really curious how it is for you guys in your countries. Obviously, I think the country that we see represented the most is America, because most influencers and booktubers are from America. So I'm gonna chime in with my German ass and tell you how it is here in Germany. People have asked me several times what it's like for me, who reads exclusively in English, to go shopping for those books. In Germany, the booktok community is really big. It's really big. It's definitely shifted from when I was a reader when I was 14, which I'm 22 now, so that was 8 years ago, to today. And when I was a reader at 14, I already read in English, mostly. The reason I started reading in English, and it's also relevant for this video, I was reading Sarah J. Maas, and I read... what did I read? Throne of Glass, and when I was reading her, only the first 3 books were out, and those were all also translated into German. So I read the first 3 books in German, and the year I was reading was 2015, so Queen of Shadows was coming out. Queen of Shadows, however, was coming out in English in September. You could not find for the life of yourself a date on when the German translation was going to be released. And my ass really wanted to read Queen of Shadows. I really did. And so I got the book in English when it released in that year. And that was the shift for me from reading all of the books in German to not reading in German at all anymore. That being said, my English was good at 14 because I had been playing Minecraft online with people from all over the world and I had a crush on a dude from whatever. I don't want to talk about it. I talked about it in my Divine Rivals review. I had a crush on a dude from the UK. And so I would write him like texts and stuff, like how much I loved him. But that being said, I definitely had a good foundation in English and I understood the language, but I thought I was the shit back then. And if I read the stuff that I wrote back then and compare it to now, I'm like, oh my god, you're so cringe. But I was 14. So that is the reason why I read in English. Of course, it's also really it comes handy for me because I can reach a wider audience by reading in English and making my videos in English instead of German. It's also really good because another thing that Germany does is it does, I don't know if there's an English word for it. German books are preisgebunden. Literally translated, that means price bound. This means that when a German publisher publishes a book, a new release, they have to give out a set price for the bookstores. So the price for the book is the same in every bookstore, and this price is set by the publisher and it cannot be changed. And so everybody that reads in German has really I was trying to find like a synonym because in German there's a idiom that says "Du hast die Arschkarte gezogen," which literally translated means you pulled the ass card, which means Pech gehabt, which means fuck, I can't translate anymore, which just means bad luck. Like you really fucked, like you got really fucked is what it means. So everyone who reads in German pulled the ass card because their books that they read don't get price reduced, except if there's like a mistake with the copy, then it gets a little sticker on the top, on the side and on the bottom that says Mängelexemplar, which means fuck which just means that there's some issues with it, maybe a misprint, maybe there's some damage to the cover or something, and then that way they get price reduced. But in general you cannot get price reduced German books, but also I don't really know that much about German books because I don't read them. With English books, however, they are not price bound and they are usually ranging, the books that I buy, they're never below 10 euros. The lowest I think starts at like 10.94, no, what? 10.95, and then there's, why do I have all of these German idioms in my head all of a sudden? I don't know what happened. Luft nach oben, which means there is air on top, which means the prices can rise. You're learning so much. The prices vary, but whenever there is some sort of sale going on, for example during Black Friday, the English books can be reduced in price. And the books that I read take up, well, if we include romance, it's 2 shelves, but it's just one big shelf of English books, and those are my books. And that's all the variety I get in books. But I saw a sign next to the bookshelf that said it's reduced 20% the English books during Black Week, but I was late for the sale. It was like after it and they still had to sign up, and then it was sad. But I also don't really buy that many books physically anymore, and in my book haul video I mentioned that I usually get them secondhand if they're not new releases. If they are new releases, I'm more likely to get them on my Kindle, just because if you get them price reduced and if you don't really care about the way that they look, if they are damaged or anything, you can get way more for your money. Because it can be that the books cost like 30 euros, even the English ones, even like an English hardcover, Iron Flame for example, I saw for 27 euros, and in no world would I ever spend 27 euros on a book. Even if I loved it so much, like Six of Crows special edition, in no world would you see me paying 27 euros for that new. You couldn't get so much for 27 euros, I'm so sorry. But of course, that's everyone's own decision. And if you have the money to do that, and if that's what you want to do, you want to collect books, then I'm happy for you, I'm a little jealous. If I want a book, I usually get it secondhand. I check out that first, and then if it doesn't exist online because no one's selling it, I will get it on my Kindle. I just get it where it's cheapest. I do on occasion still buy books from the bookstore, but as I said, in my local bookstore, it's a small store. It's one shelf and then another shelf next to it, and it holds all of the English books. It holds non-fiction, fiction, fantasy, thriller, horror. It holds all of them, and the range is very small. They do get new releases in early sometimes. For example, I saw Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare 2 days pre-release, which is not that much, you know, but if I had cared about that book, I probably would have bought it pre-release just so I have it early, even if it's just 2 days. Because for me as a reviewer, that gives me time to read it already and then review it, and I can get my review out the fastest. I don't really know. Honestly, since I was 14, they've rearranged the bookstore a lot. I've gone there since I was 14 buying my books, and they changed their variety from 1 shelf to 2 in the 8 years. There also used to be a different bookstore in that city that closed down. They don't have any money anymore. And that one had an even smaller shelf, because you will see in the video, the shelves are kind of wide. The one that used to be in that other bookstore was literally this wide, and then like 6 feet tall, which is 1 meter 80 centimeters tall, and it was in the back corner of the bookshop, hidden away, and they had some random English books, and they were always the same because no one bought them, no one read them. But they also had some early releases sometimes, and very niche books like Josephine Angelini books that no one cares about, and I got it early. And I told this story before. It was like, I got it early, I took a picture of it, posted it on Twitter, and she replied to me and she was like, have fun reading it early. And then I found out that fucks with their sales. But that's not my fault. So since the booktok community is growing in Germany, or has grown extensively in Germany, I think that bookstores are definitely paying more attention, especially to the English books. Also, another fun fact about Germany, if you don't know this, they are obsessed with sprayed edges. And I don't just mean like one color they do designs. And this is a great segue because we're going to talk about the translation time of books and also the sprayed edges. They just announced the German edition of Divine Rivals, and I saw this all over TikTok. People are going crazy over it, especially also with Fourth Wing. They have a sprayed edges with like also the hardcover being sprayed, not just the edges but also the book itself with like a dragon. People go crazy over it. They order it from from Germany to America. Guys, if you want anything, let me know. I'll send it to you if it's cheaper. My fucking god, you know? Like, why are we making such a big deal out of this? They announced the Divine Rivals German edition, and you have to keep in mind that that book came out early this year in 2023, and it's just now releasing spring 2024 in German. So it took a whole year to get translated. So all of the people that are on BookTok in Germany, they usually hear about the English books too when they get super hyped, obviously, but they don't have the language ability, which is no shade and no tea. They just don't speak the language that well, and so they have to wait extensive amounts of time until it gets translated, which was another reason for me why I got Queen of Shadows in English and started reading in English, because I didn't want to have to wait for so fucking long. The sprayed edges of Divine Virals. Honestly, guys, you know what? I'm just gonna show you on my phone because that saves me time in editing. I don't have to look up the pictures on the PC. I took a silly little screenshot to show you guys. They used the UK cover, which is people on the cover. Or is it the UK cover? I think so. It's coming out in March, and as you can see, the sprayed edges have like silly little, how do you say, letters on them. And they also, in the same breath, announced that the sequel was coming out like 3 months later or 4 months later in the summer, since that is coming out in this month, the end of this month or the beginning of January. So they were much faster translating that, but they just want to release both of them in one go. Since I'm not working for a publisher, obviously, I don't know the ins and outs of the publishing industry, especially not in Germany. But I imagine that, especially with books like Rebecca Ross's Divine Virals, this is a new book that got hyped up, and then it's always a question for a German publisher: should we pick this up? Should we translate it into our language? And will it sell? And then, of course, it takes a while to get actually translated, especially depending on what kind of words are being used. If it's difficult words, if it's I think if it's fantasy, it's gonna take even longer because there's a whole magic system that has to make sense in a different language. But also, I imagine that for authors like Sarah J. Maas, who make a lot of, or who have a lot of books that have already been translated, there's usually a team at the publisher that have like a set author that when there is a release by that author, they translate the book because they've translated books from them in the past, and so they are familiar with the writing style and with the types of words that get used, and it's easier for them to translate it, and also it's faster. If you're wondering, Queen of Shadows came out September 1st, 2015 in English, and then the German version released 1 year later in November. So everyone had to wait a fucking year. And I was just not about that life when I was 14. I said, you know what, bitch, I'm not waiting a year. Let's just commit to English. And then I thought to myself, maybe they got faster in translation, and because I would think it's with movies, you kind of aim to release them simultaneously with the original release. I was wrong though, because I looked up Kingdom of Ash, how long that took to translate, the last book in the Throne of Glass series. It came out on the 10th of February 2017 in English, and then it took over a year to translate into German. It came out in October 2018 in Germany. So over a year and a half later. What the fuck is that about? What's taking so long? I don't really know why they don't have deals with publishers to maybe get pre-release books, get drafts, finished drafts before they start printing them. They need a draft that gets printed and everything, so they can start working on it already, or maybe they do and it just really takes that long. It's interesting though. I'm using Sarah J. Maas as an example because she is such a big author with so many books and many fans, so it's a given that her books will be translated ASAP. With Crescent City 3 coming out, oh my god, it says the German version has 960 pages. I was confused because I looked it up and it said the English version has 800. I don't believe that. I think it's going to be around 1,000. But that is coming out at the end of January, the 30th of January. And in German, it's releasing in the middle of March of 2024. So just 2 months later. So it's still a while until it releases in the translated version, but it's not like a year and a half difference like it used to be. The variety of books available, of course, also changes depending on where you live in Germany, if you live in a city or if you live in a small fucking town like me. And the bookstore is sufficient enough for me. They usually have all of the recent books. Oftentimes they don't have full series available to buy, they just have like the first book of a series. This is different though. For example, when I went to Hamburg with my boyfriend, we went into the bookstore there, and they had like an entire floor for English books and YA books. They had such a huge variety, and I was really shook because they don't have that here. My boyfriend lives in a city, and even his bookstore, they have a bigger variety. They have 3 shelves instead of 2, but they also have tables and they put a little bit more effort into it. And I wish I could have vlogged some stuff for you guys in there, but you have to imagine the English bookshelf wall is right by the door, and that is right by the cash register. So there's literally an employee staring at you the entire fucking time you're in there and looking at the books. And so I only ever make him like take photos of me in there. For example, the Iron Flame picture that I took in there because they had an entire wall that's usually full of different books that are hyped on booktok, full of Iron Flame. And then when I saw Nightbane, which I hadn't seen in a month of its release, this was the first time I saw it, I also made him take a picture. But I'm also really awkward because there's not that much space in there. Also, why am I sitting like sideways? I don't know, my chair just always turns. I just kind of wanted to tell you guys a little bit of an insight what it's like to shop books here. And it's also like there's not really small bookstores, I would say. At least not where I live. It's a chain. And I remember going there, you know, back in my day, back when I was in my height of reading. I went there and I said to the woman, can I please get King's Sword is what it's called. Oh, whatever. It's like, no, it's not King's Sword. What is it? King's Crown, no. King's Cage! The 3rd book in the Red Queen series. Because I got the 2nd one in English after reading the 1st one in German. I was now in my English phase. I got the 2nd one as an English hardcover, and I went to the bookstore specifically because I wanted to get the hardcover for the 3rd book. I said I want them to match as much as possible, and I went to the bookstore to specifically order the hardcover. I stood next to the woman ordering it, right? She was looking up on her little system. She pulled up Amazon. She pulls up Amazon next to me and starts looking in there, and then ordered something off of Amazon. Dead ass. And then it wasn't the hardcover. It's like some kind of special edition. I don't know what it is, but it's not a hardcover. They order all of the books you like, even if they don't have them in store. They'll order them to your house or in store so you can pick them up. What the fuck else? I wanted to tell you guys something else about it. Let me think. I talked so much again. I didn't even want to talk that much. Oh, Germany also has a history of really ugly covers. They used to make covers so ugly. I talked about it in one of my podcast episodes where I was talking about... I don't know what I was talking about, but I did talk about it. And I was showing some examples. For example, the Shatter Me series used to have a woman on the cover in like a dress. And that was a stock image because I saw another book cover with the same cover. They've gotten better with that though. I think they've stopped changing them around so much because I genuinely never understood why they would do it. The Red Queen series also was just a woman on the cover randomly. Like, just leave the fucking crowns. What's stopping you? Also, I understand that you guys are wondering if I've ever been recognized. You know, this is a burning question. I've never been recognized in a bookstore before. No one's ever recognized me. No one's ever asked me, are you Sophie? Honestly, Sophie from... What the fuck did I want to say? I wanted to tell you guys something else. No, I forgot. Now I don't have time. I guess we'll never know. I guess we'll never know. Anyway, guys, I just wanted to make a very short version, not very short, but a shorter version of a podcast episode where I talk about what it's like to be a German reading in English. Let me know what it's like in your country. If you're jealous of our sprayed edges. Because I think I've heard a lot of Germans actually say they're fed up with the sprayed edges. They just want a normal fucking book. But we just can't get it because everything has to have a sprayed edge. There's very little left in bookmas. There's going to be, actually, I've decided 2 special videos. The 11th and the 12th day. It's not that special. I'm just saying, like, it's something that I wanted to do for some other day, for something else, like for a different video. But I'm now just putting it into bookmas. Let me know all of your thoughts down below, as always. I love seeing your comments. Stay happy. Stay healthy. Peace and love. And hopefully, I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.